Hi guys, and welcome to Magic. In this video I'm going to show you how to actually deploy Magic to your cloud. Now I'm going to be using DigitalOcean, which you can find a link to in the description of this YouTube video. And I'm also going to be using the Getting Started tutorial at the main Magic website, which you can also find a link to in the description of this YouTube video. However, the process is similar also for other cloud vendors. I simply choose to use DigitalOcean because they actually provide me with a virtual server for $5 a month, which I think is a spectacularly good deal. Now go to the Magic website. There's a link in the description of this YouTube video. Click the Getting Started link, then scroll a bit down until you find the Deploy Magic to your cloud. And then basically here's the entirety of the recipe. I'm going to walk you through it. You go to digitalocean.com, you register. It's ridiculously simple to register. You can even use your GitHub account because they have OAuth 2 support. Then you just choose to create a new droplet. This is what they're referred to in DigitalOcean, but they're basically virtual servers. So I've tested this setup process with the latest version of Ubuntu, version 20.04. And then you can choose your level. I'm just going to do $5 a month. And in fact, I've tested it, and even with a $5 a month server, its Magic is still blistering fast. And so you choose your plan here, $5 a month. Then you can also scale up these later to having more CPU, more RAM, more disk, whatever. Then you can choose your region. I'm going to choose something that's geographically close to me, and you should too. I'm based in Cyprus, so obviously London will have fewer TCP hops than New York or San Francisco and stuff like that. So I could also have chosen Frankfurt probably. Then you go down here, you give your server a root password. This is the SSH root password, so it should probably be extremely secure. You see I'm typing a lot of characters here, obviously. I only want to have one droplet. However, I want to give my droplet a more friendly name than the default, so I'm just going to call it Magic. Then I can optionally tag it. I can optionally enable backups. I'm not going to do that. And I've now created a virtual server, and it costs me $5 a month. And yes, for the record, they even give you $100 up front as you sign up. I think it expires after 60 days though. So, but at the very least for 2 months, I won't be paying anything for this server. And then when this bar is done doing its thing, I will have my server. Then when it's done, you have a public IP address here. You can see here, you just click the droplets. And that's it. Then you can enter the droplet using this console link. In the corner here, you see where I'm moving my mouse. This will ask you to log into your server. At this point, you should provide root as your login. And then you need to type the password that you provided as you created your droplets. And as you can see here, I'm inside of my droplets. I can do ls, and that's it. Now I want to install Docker. I do that by typing snap install Docker. Snap space install space Docker, carriage return. And this might take some time. However, when it's done, we're going to download a script, which you can find further down here. And we're going to download the script using curl. Make sure you copy the entirety of this line. It's scrolling, as you can see here now. Then you just copy this, installing Magic on your droplet using Docker. And then you just click Control V inside of your DigitalOcean droplet console, and you click carriage return. If you now do ls, you will see that we downloaded the file, which we are now going to edit. And the way we edit it is by using Nano, the integrated text editor with Linux. Nano, or you can do, I guess, sudo, it doesn't really matter that much. Nano, docker, and then just press tab, which is gonna autocomplete docker-compose.yml. And then scroll to the bottom of this script, where you can find 4 values that needs to be updated. Underneath the Nginx link here, you can find the environments, and there you can find allowed domains. Now, the domain part here becomes my front end. So I'm going to be using magic.servergardens.com to host my front end. So I'm going to have to delete this existing value and type magic.servergardens.com. And then in my API domain here, delete that guy. I'm going to type api.servergardens.com. And then we're going to have to do the same here underneath the sites node. Delete the domain and type magic.servergardens.com equals frontend:80. Then do the same for API domain here. Except here you write api.servergardens.com. And of course, you do not write servergardens.com here. Here you write your own domain, whatever that happens to be. You must have a domain registered at this point, I must emphasize. So find a domain registration service if you don't already have a domain, and register a domain or use an existing domain. And you don't have to use the root domain. I'm going to use my main WordPress domain here. So you can also use subdomains. As you can see here, I'm not using my root domain servergardens.com. I'm using api.servergardens.com, and then I'm using magic.servergardens.com here. And of course, the whole point is that this sites section needs to match whatever you have in the allowed domains section here. And basically what this allowed domains section is a regular expression providing 2 domains, my front end and my backend. My backend is going to be served at api.servergardens.com, and my front end is going to be served at magic.servergardens.com. And then, of course, internally, what this Nginx node actually does, it forwards all requests coming into my public IP address with the host name of magic.servergardens.com to my front end. And then it forwards all requests coming into api.servergardens.com to my backend. Click Ctrl X, at which point you're being asked if you want to save your file. Type Y for yes, and then just carriage return to choose the same file name. And actually, that's more or less it. Now you can type docker-compose space up space -d for detached mode. And what this will actually do, it will actually start 4 containers. MySQL container containing your MySQL database, which is, by the way, not exposed over the public internet, so it's impossible to reach outside of these Docker containers. It will create a Magic frontend for you. It will create a Magic backend for you. Then it will create an Nginx proxy routing server in front of all of these components, basically routing incoming HTTP requests to the correct internal server, serving either your Angular frontend or your Magic backend for you. Now, at this point, it will take some time because it's going to have to download all the Docker images and all that good stuff and basically install Magic. However, when this process is done, which it is now, then all you got to do is to close this window, go back to your DigitalOcean account, and take your public IP address here. So you can see mine is 46.101.50.160. Then simply click copy and go to your domain provider, whatever domain provider that happens to be. It might be domains.com, it might be GoDaddy, it might be WordPress, such as for instance for me. And then you basically set up a DNS-A record, or more specifically, you set up 2 DNS-A records. I'm going to be setting up these 2 DNS records here, as you can see here, api.servergardens.com and magic.servergardens.com, and I'm going to be pointing them to this IP address, 46.101.50.160. Now I can't show you that, of course, because that's going to show you, like, confidential information inside of my WordPress account and stuff like that. However, the process is the same regardless of what hosting provider you choose. So I'm going to stop the video now and continue after I've set up my domain to point towards my public DigitalOcean IP. I have now set up 2 DNS-A records. And if you're a little bit restless, like me, if you're the ADD type, you can scroll further down here. If you're on a Mac, there's a terminal script here that flushes your DNS cache. This is different depending upon whether or not you're using Linux, Windows, or whatever you're using on your development machine. However, this particular line of code actually flushes my DNS cache on my Mac. So I can just open a terminal window now, and I can paste in this script. This flushes my cache. After I've typed my password, I can exit this guy. And actually, that's it. I can now go to magic.servergardens.com and I can click carriage return. And as you can see here, actually, what this Nginx server actually does, it automatically installs an SSL certificate from Let's Encrypt for me, 100% automatically. And it does the same thing for my backend. Now, depending upon what domain you used here, I used magic dot and then my domain name, and then API dot and then my domain name for the backend. Then you're going to have to, as you log in, you're going to have to type the URL of your API DNS record. I'm using api.servergardens.com. This will of course be different for you depending upon what domain you have, but the username is the same and it's root, and the password is the same, it's root. Log in with root/root. This will bring you onwards into your Magic installation, at which point you're going to have to configure Magic. This might take a little bit of a time because it's actually creating a database for you and stuff like that. Now, don't save this, or you can, but it doesn't really matter. When you're coming into Magic now, you're going to have to configure Magic. And of course, this docker compose.yml file only contains MySQL. So you're going to have to choose MySQL as your backing database. You can of course modify it to use SQL Server if you wish, but that's beyond the scope of this little tutorial. Type a root password, repeat it twice, exactly the same. Keep the connection string exactly as it is. Do not change it. And then click next. And now Magic is actually automatically creating an authentication and authorization database for us. It's creating audit logging database for us, etc., etc. Don't save this, by the way, because it's obviously not the correct username. You can change it if you want to, but doesn't really matter. You can save it later to your browser. Then click next on Crodify Magic Database. Then type your name, Thomas Hansen, and your email address, thomas@servergardens.com, and then just click next. This creates a keeper for you, a cryptography keeper, giving you some cool crypto features in Magic, and then you can run the assumptions if you wish, but you don't really have to do it. Now, one of these assumptions is going to fail simply because the assumption doesn't have the correct domain name. So when all of these assumptions are done executing, if you want to, optionally, but it doesn't really matter that much, you can just ignore it. You can modify its backend URL through which it is trying to invoke a cryptographically signed invocation. Now, for me to do that here would become the equivalent of exchanging this with https://pi.servergardens.com, saving the file and running it, at which point assumption succeeded. And you now have magic. Congratulations. You can go to the SQL menu item, you can load the Babelfish script, you can execute it, you can then go to your diagnostics, click the cache, empty your cache, at which point once you go to the generator, you'll be able to select that database and automatically create an HTTP CRUD REST API backend for it, at which point you can go to the front end, you can select the templates, give your app a name and choose Babelfish as your module and download a zip file, effectively generating a complete Angular frontend wrapping the Babelfish database. And of course, any types of SQL scripts you have that functions towards MySQL, you can also choose the Sakila database script. It's much larger though, but if you have an existing database script too, you can also just paste it in here to create your database in your Magic dashboard in your backend. And you now have Magic on your own cloud server, and you're paying $5 a month for it. Now, of course, I want to emphasize at this point, if you actually want to use Magic after having played around with it for 47 hours, you have to do this before 47 hours passes. You're going to have to go to configuration, then you're going to have to click license, then you're going to have to paste in a valid license here. If you don't already have a license, you can obtain a valid license here by going to the Server Gardens website and paying either with PayPal, Ethereum, or Bitcoin if you wish. And then I will send you a license file on an email, and you can paste in your license here. Obviously, I'm going to have to need your email address or some way to actually communicate this license to you. So, but that's actually the only thing I actually need. So, anyways, that was it. And thank you for watching, and have a nice day.